During my recovery from back surgery, my teenage son didn't realize I was awake when he told his friend on the phone. Mom says once dad's insurance settlement comes, she's divorcing him and we're moving to California. She's already talking to realtors there. I continued taking my medication and following doctor's orders without letting on what I'd heard. Yesterday, her 43 increasingly desperate voicemails showed the panic setting in. Look, I'm not a guy who usually posts his personal shit online, but I'm sitting here staring at my phone with 43 voicemails from the woman I've been married to for 19 years, and I just need to get this off my chest. Maybe typing this out will keep me from doing something stupid. Here goes. 3 months ago, I slipped off some scaffolding and fucked up my back bad enough to need surgery. Two herniated discs, one that was pressing on a nerve so bad I couldn't feel my left leg. Not gonna lie, the pain was like someone taking a jackhammer to my spine 24/7. The doc said I needed a spinal fusion, which meant screws, rods, and at least 6 months before I could even think about normal work again. Our finances were already sketchy at best. Me and Erica, my wife, 41F, had been fighting about money for years. She's always wanted more, bigger house, newer cars, vacations I couldn't afford. I'm not blaming her completely. I made some dumb investments 5 years back and lost about 30 grand of our savings. She never really forgave me for that, looking back, but I thought we were working through it. When the accident happened, she did what wives are supposed to do. Drove me to appointments, picked up prescriptions, helped me to the bathroom those first horrible weeks when I couldn't even wipe my own ass. But something felt off, like she was going through the motions. I chalked it up to stress. Insurance was being a pain in the ass about covering everything, and the bills were piling up. Then came that Tuesday afternoon. About 3 weeks after my surgery, I was heavily medicated, drifting in and out of sleep in my recliner in the living room. Erica thought I was completely out. I'd taken my Oxy about an hour before, and normally that knocked me the hell out. But for whatever reason, I was in that weird half-awake state. Our son Everett, 16M, came downstairs and plopped down on the couch across from me, started playing some game on his phone, then got a call. Answered it while looking over at me, probably checking if I was asleep. I kept my eyes shut, breathing steady. Force of habit from pretending to be asleep when the kids were little and would crawl into our bed at 5 a.m. That's when I heard Everett tell his friend, pretty sure it was that kid Lawson he's always hanging out with, that they might not be able to go to some concert they'd been planning for. Then he says the words that basically demolished the foundation of my life. Dude, we probably won't even be here by then. Mom says once dad's insurance settlement comes through, she's divorcing him and we're moving to California. She's already talking to realtors there. My son had no idea I heard every single word. I kept my breathing steady, eyes closed, even though inside my chest felt like someone had dropped a concrete block on it. Everett kept talking, saying how his mom was tired of dealing with dad's shit, and how she'd been planning this for a while. How she'd been looking at houses in San Diego. How she'd already talked to her sister Maya about a job at her company out there. Guys, I just lay there, paralyzed. Not from my injury, but from hearing my entire future being dismantled while I was too broken to even defend myself. After Everett went back upstairs, I actually threw up. Blamed it on the meds when Erica came in to check on me. She cleaned it up, brought me water, and I thanked her like some kind of idiot. The whole time I'm looking at her face thinking, who the fuck are you? Here's the thing about being laid up with a back injury. You have nothing but time. Time to think, time to plan, time to remember every suspicious phone call, every whispered conversation, every time she'd been helping me while apparently plotting her escape. I didn't confront her. Maybe that makes me a coward. Maybe it makes me smart. But I needed to know more. And I needed to protect myself. The insurance settlement was going to be substantial, around $675,000 according to my attorney. Not FU money by any stretch, but enough to set up a new life in California apparently. So I started paying attention, really paying attention. When she'd help me to the bathroom, I'd casually ask about her day. She'd talk about errands, about checking in with my job, I'm on medical leave, about calling the insurance company, all things a concerned wife would do. But then I started noticing other things, like how she'd take calls in the backyard, how she'd close her laptop when I wheeled into the room in my walker, how she'd been reconnecting with old friends through social media, always keeping her phone angled away from me. One night, after she thought I was knocked out on meds, I managed to get a look at her search history on our shared tablet. Best school districts, San Diego. Cost of living, California versus Midwest. How to transfer house deed after divorce. I wanted to throw the fucking tablet through the window. Instead, I texted my buddy Silas. He went through a nasty divorce 3 years ago, and I remembered him saying his attorney was worth every penny. Asked if we could talk, and he came over the next day when Erica took Everett to soccer practice. Silas didn't pull AA punches, told me I needed to document everything, secure whatever money I could, and get a shark of a lawyer before she blindsided me with papers. Gave me his attorney's info, guy named Elliot, who apparently specializes in cases where one spouse is trying to pull a fast one. I made the call that same day. Elliot couldn't see me in person, stares at his office, and I still couldn't drive, so we did a video chat. The guy looked like your standard middle-aged dude in a button-up, but he talked like someone who enjoyed taking people apart in court. I laid it all out for him. The overheard conversation, the search history, the fact that a massive insurance settlement was coming, the fact that I was basically a sitting duck, partially disabled, on major painkillers, and completely dependent on the person plotting to take everything and run. Elliot didn't seem surprised at all, just kept taking notes and nodding. Then he mapped out my game plan. Don't confront her yet. Keep playing dumb. Start documenting everything. Times she left me alone. Conversations, anything related to money or future plans. Get copies of all financial records from the past 5 years. Open a separate account at a different bank. Change the beneficiary on my life insurance, currently her. Make sure the insurance settlement check would require both our signatures to cash. The last week has been the hardest of my life, TBH. Harder than the physical pain, which is still pretty fucking bad. Every time Erica brings me my meds or helps me with physical therapy exercises, I have to act grateful. Every time she asks about the insurance paperwork or when the settlement might come, I have to pretend I don't see right through her. Yesterday, while she was grocery shopping, I had Silas come over and help me gather documents from our home office. Found statements for credit cards I didn't know existed. Found brochures for California hidden in her underwear drawer. Yeah, I went there. Found a draft email to her sister talking about starting fresh once P is taken care of. P being me, Porter, the husband she's been with since we were 22 and 24. The insurance adjuster called today. Settlement paperwork should be finalized next week. $675,000 that was supposed to support our family while I recover, maybe retrain for something less physical since my back will never be the same again. Now it's the timer on a fucking bomb. I've set everything up according to Elliot's instructions. New account, copies of documents, changed beneficiaries. Even managed to get a recording of Everett talking about their California plans by pretending to want to video chat with my brother and accidentally leaving the recording going. Meanwhile, Erica's getting increasingly antsy about the settlement. Keeps asking if I've heard anything new. Keeps suggesting I call and push them along. Keeps talking about how much better I'll feel once we're financially secure again. I'm shaking as I type this on my phone. Not from the pain or the meds, but from the cold fucking rage building inside me. 19 years together. A son we raised. Countless nights I worked overtime to give her what she wanted. And this is how it ends. Tomorrow, the settlement letter arrives. Elliot says I should continue acting normal for a few more days, while he puts the rest of our plan in motion. But watching her check the mail 3 times today, seeing the hunger in her eyes, when she asks about the insurance money, I honestly don't know if I can keep up this charade much longer. The painkillers don't touch this kind of pain. Nothing does. We'll update when the shit hits the fan. It's about to get messy, and I'm sitting here like a wounded animal just waiting for the right moment to bite back. Update 1. Damn, I wasn't expecting that first post to blow up like it did. Thanks for all the messages and advice. I read everything even if I couldn't respond. The past 2 weeks have been a total shit show, so let me catch you all up on what went down. That settlement check? It arrived exactly on schedule. $675,000 made out to both of us, requiring both signatures. Let me tell you, watching Erica's face when she brought in the mail that day was something else. She tried to play it cool, but her hands were literally shaking as she handed me the envelope. I'm not gonna lie, part of me wanted to just rip it open and scream in her face about everything I knew. But Elliot had drilled it into me. Stick to the plan, keep emotions out of it. So I did what any unsuspecting husband would do. I smiled, opened it slowly, and acted appropriately surprised and relieved. Her first words weren't congratulations or thank God or anything normal. They were, how soon can we deposit this? That should have been red flag number 100, but I was way past counting flags at that point. I told her we should talk about our plans for the money first. Suggested we sit down that evening after dinner to discuss how to allocate it. Medical bills, savings, maybe setting some aside for Everett's college fund. She agreed too quickly, with this weird smile that didn't reach her eyes. What she didn't know was that I'd already been busy, real busy. Remember that separate account Elliot told me to set up? It was ready and waiting. 2 days before the check arrived, I'd moved most of our accessible savings, about $12,000, into it. Not the joint savings account, but one in just my name. Left enough in our regular accounts that she wouldn't notice anything missing during casual checking. I also had copies of all our financial records going back 5 years. Credit card statements, bank statements, investment accounts, retirement funds, everything. And boy, did those records tell a story when Elliot's team went through them. Turns out Erica had opened 3 credit cards I knew nothing about over the past 2 years, had been making minimum payments on balances totaling nearly $27,000, multiple charges to hotels I'd never stayed at, expensive restaurants on days I was working overtime, online purchases shipped to her sister Maya's address. Yeah, that kind of spending. But the real kicker, the weekend before the settlement check arrived, I had Silas drive me to the bank while Erica was at her book club, which I now seriously doubted existed. Had a long talk with the manager there, showed him our marriage my ID, and explained that I needed certain protections in place due to some concerning financial activity. The bank manager was this older guy with reading glasses who'd seen it all. He didn't even blink when I explained my situation. Set up a protocol that any withdrawal over $1,000 from our joint accounts would trigger an automatic text alert to my phone. Also flagged our account for special attention, so the settlement check couldn't be deposited without additional verification. So back to that night after the check arrived. We sat at the kitchen table after Everett went upstairs. I was still moving slow, still in pain, but managing without as many painkillers. Needed a clear head for what was coming. Erica had her laptop open, showing me a spreadsheet she'd apparently prepared. Allocations for medical bills, house repairs, and, this is where it got interesting, a fresh start fund of $300,000. When I asked what exactly a fresh start fund was, she got this tight smile and said it was for emergencies and opportunities. Right, like the opportunity to move to San fucking Diego. I nodded along, asking innocent questions. How much were the remaining medical bills exactly? Had she gotten updated quotes on the roof repair we'd been putting off? Just normal husband questions that made her increasingly fidgety. Then I asked the question that changed everything. Have you been looking at real estate anywhere? Her face did this thing where it tried to show several emotions at once. Surprise, denial, calculation, then forced confusion. She asked why I would ask that. I shrugged, mentioned that with this kind of money, maybe we could finally afford that vacation property she'd always talked about. The relief on her face was painful to watch. She actually reached over and patted my hand like I was a good puppy who'd performed a trick. Said maybe we should wait until I was fully recovered before making any big decision. I nodded and said that made sense. Then I said something about being tired and needing to lie down. She helped me to bed, brought my evening pills, kissed my forehead, and went back downstairs. As soon as she left, I texted Elliot. She took the bait, moving to phase 2. The next morning, I asked Erica if she could deposit the check for me since stairs were still difficult. She practically sprinted to the bank. 30 minutes later, I got the alert on my phone. Deposit pending. Special authorization required. Then my phone rang. It was the bank manager, right on schedule. He was calling to verify the deposit with me directly as the additional security measure we'd set up. Loud enough that Erica, who had just walked back in, could hear my side of the conversation. I confirmed I knew about the deposit, but asked how long the hold would be. He gave the answer we'd rehearsed, 3 to 5 business days due to the size of the check, and funds would be released in stages, not all at once. Watching Erica's face fall was like watching a building collapse in slow motion. Her whole plan was built on getting immediate access to that cash. That night, she started drinking wine earlier than usual. By dinner, she was on her 3rd glass and getting sloppy, started making comments about how unfair it was that the bank was controlling our money, how we'd waited long enough, how she'd been carrying everything while I was laid up. Everett was picking at his food, clearly uncomfortable. I felt bad for the kid. He was just repeating what he'd heard from his mom. Had no idea he'd blown her whole operation when I overheard him. After dinner, I asked Everett to help me into the living room while Erica cleaned up. Once we were alone, I decided to test the waters. Asked him if everything was okay at school with friends. Then casually mentioned I'd been thinking we might take a family trip once I was more mobile, maybe somewhere warm like Florida or Arizona. The kid looked like I'd punched him, started mumbling about not making plans too far ahead, about focusing on my recovery first. Then he literally made an excuse about homework and bolted upstairs. Breaking my own kid's trust in his mother wasn't part of my plan, but it was becoming collateral damage I couldn't avoid. The next few days were tense. The bank released the first portion of the funds, $100,000, into our joint account. Erica immediately transferred $50,000 into her personal account before I could notice. Little did she know, I got an alert the second she did it. I let it go. Elliot said we could claw it back later, and it was better to let her think she was winning. I started making calls when she was out of the house, to our insurance company, to the medical billing department, to Everett's school, changed passwords, updated contact information, placed notes on accounts that major changes required verbal confirmation from me, building a wall brick by brick around what was left of my life. 5 days after the check deposit, Erica started getting antsy about the remaining funds. Called the bank twice, got the same answer. Releases were scheduled according to policy for large deposits. That night, she picked a fight. Started with complaints about the takeout food, escalated to how I wasn't trying hard enough in physical therapy, then somehow turned into how I'd always held her back, never supported her dreams, forced her to live in this dump of a town when she could have had so much more. 19 years of resentment poured out of her like poison from a wound. All while I sat there, still wearing the back brace, still unable to even tie my own shoes some days. I let her rant. Didn't defend myself, didn't argue back, just listened and nodded occasionally. This only made her angrier. She wanted a fight, wanted me to give her justification. When she finally ran out of steam, I just asked one question. Is there something you want to tell me about California? The silence was deafening. Her face went from flushed with anger to paper white in seconds. She stammered something about not knowing what I was talking about. I didn't press it, just said I was tired and needed my medication. She stormed off to the bedroom while I stayed on the recliner where I'd been sleeping since the surgery. Neither of us slept much that night. The next morning, she was sugary sweet again. Made my favorite breakfast, brought me coffee just how I like it. Apologized for getting emotional the night before. Blamed it on stress and worry about my recovery. I nodded and accepted her apology, like the understanding husband she thought I still was. That afternoon, while she was at the grocery store, I had Silas come over with a locksmith, changed the codes on our garage door opener, and got new keys for all the exterior doors. Silas helped me move some important documents and irreplaceable items to his house for safekeeping, photo albums, my dad's watch, a few other things I couldn't bear to lose if she decided to go scorched earth. When the next chunk of settlement money hit our account, $200,000 this time, Erica didn't immediately transfer any to her personal account. Instead, she suggested we go together to meet with a financial advisor she'd found. Said he had great reviews online and specialized in windfall management. I agreed, but said I'd prefer to use someone from our bank who already knew our situation. She pushed back hard, saying her guy was more experienced with personal injury settlements. I'm sure he was. Probably also knew exactly which paperwork to have me sign that would give her access to everything. The day before our supposed appointment with this advisor, Elliot called. The divorce papers were ready. We'd filed in our county that morning and she would be served the next day. Everything was in place. Temporary orders for the house, for Everett, for the settlement money. That evening, Erica announced she needed to visit her sister Maya for the weekend. Some emergency with Maya's kid that required her help. She'd be leaving tomorrow morning. Sure, totally believable that the sister she was planning to move in with in California suddenly needed her help on the exact day we were supposed to meet with her mystery financial advisor. I said of course she should go. Family comes first. Asked if Everett would be staying with me or going with her. She hesitated, then said he should probably stay to keep an eye on me. Translation: to report back on what I was doing. She packed that night, kept coming in to check if I needed anything, if I had enough medication, if I knew where the emergency number, playing the concerned wife right up to the end. The next morning, she kissed me goodbye, all worried looks and promises to call when she arrived at Maya's. I watched from the window as she loaded her suitcase, a suspiciously large one for a weekend trip, into her car and drove away. 1 hour later, the process server delivered the divorce papers to her at a rest stop 50 miles south. Elliot had put a basic tracker on her car while she was busy packing. Totally legal since the car was in both our names. 20 minutes after that, my phone exploded with notifications. First a text, "What the fuck is this?" Then calls, one after another. I didn't answer. By evening, there were 17 missed calls and counting. Voicemails ranging from confused to angry to tearfully apologetic to threatening. I listened to each one, forwarded copies to Elliot, and tried to stay calm. Everett came downstairs looking confused and upset. Said his mom had been calling him nonstop, saying I was trying to steal their future, that I was punishing her for wanting to be happy, that he needed to convince me to call off the attack. I sat him down, moving carefully with my still healing back, and told him I knew about the California plans, had known for weeks. His face crumpled, like he was 5 years old again, caught stealing cookies, started crying, saying he never meant to hurt me, that Mom said it would be better for everyone. Hardest thing I've ever done was hug that kid and tell him none of this was his fault, that adults make their own messes and kids shouldn't have to clean them up. That night, the calls from Erica hit 28 and counting, each voicemail more desperate than the last. The final one before I turned off my phone for the night. "Porter, please? We can work this out. I made a mistake. I was just exploring options. Please call me back. I'm coming home tomorrow. We need to talk." To be continued with what happened when she came home to find the locks changed and half the settlement money legally protected by court order. Finally, update. First off, holy shit, guys. The support from my last 2 posts has been unreal. Didn't expect so many people to be invested in my train wreck of a marriage. Some of you called what would happen next with scary accuracy. Let me tell you how it all went down. So when we left off, Erica had just been served divorce papers while supposedly visiting her sister and had left 28 increasingly unhinged voicemails on my phone. That was just the beginning of what turned into the most insane 72 hours of my life. I woke up the next morning to 15 more missed calls and a string of texts ranging from, "Please, baby, I love you," to "I will destroy you if you don't call me back." Real normal trademark stuff from someone who definitely wasn't panicking about her master plan falling apart. Everett was a mess. Poor kid kept checking his phone with this anxious look, then putting it down like it was burning his hand. When I asked if he wanted to talk about his mom's calls, he just shook his head and mumbled something about needing to finish a history project. Hard to blame him. Being caught between warring parents is a special kind of hell I never wanted him to experience. Around noon, I finally answered one of Erica's calls. Big mistake. As soon as I said hello, she launched into this bizarre mix of sobbing apologies and barely veiled threats. Kept saying things like, "We need to talk in person and you don't understand what you're doing," and the classic, "This isn't what it looks like." I mostly just listened, letting her talk herself into circles. When she finally ran out of steam, I told her she could come back to discuss things civilly, but that the locks had been changed, for security reasons, of course, and she should text when she arrived so Everett could let her in. There was this long pause before she asked if I was serious. I said yes, completely serious. Then she hung up. 3 hours later, our doorbell started ringing. Not like a normal person rings a doorbell, like someone trying to break the damn button. Ding dong, ding dong, ding dong. Without stopping. I was in the kitchen when it started and almost dropped my coffee mug. Had to grab my walker to make it to the front window. There she was, standing on our porch with her suitcase, stabbing the doorbell like it owed her money. Hair a mess, makeup smeared. Not exactly the put-together woman who'd left to help her sister the day before. I nodded to Everett, who reluctantly went to open the door. The second it opened, Erica pushed past him and made a beeline for him. Started this performance about how worried she'd been, how the papers were clearly a misunderstanding, how we needed to call Elliot right away to fix this terrible mistake. All while Everett stood there watching his mother completely gaslight both of us. I suggested we all sit down in the living room to talk like adults. Erica looked relieved, probably thought I was wavering. Instead, once we were all seated, I pulled out my phone, opened the voice memo app, and hit play. It was the recording of Everett's phone conversation with his friend. Crystal clear audio of him saying Mom says once Dad's insurance settlement comes, she's divorcing him and we're moving to California. She's already talking to realtors there. Watching the blood drain from Erica's face was like watching someone deflate. Her eyes darted between me and Everett, who looked like he wanted the floor to swallow him whole. Then came the denials. Everett must have misunderstood. She was just exploring options. It was just talk. She never intended to actually leave. She was looking at California for us, as a family. When that didn't work, she switched tactic, started bringing up my past mistakes, the failed investment, times I'd worked late, a flirty text from a female coworker 5 years ago that turned out to be completely innocent but that she'd never let go. I let her rant. Just sat there with my stupid back brace, nodding occasionally until she finally ran out of steam. Then I pulled out the folder Elliot had prepared for me. Credit card statements showing hotel charges on days I was working, restaurant receipts for places that cost more than my daily pay, the realtor emails she'd deleted but that we'd recovered from the cloud backup of our shared computer, phone records showing hours of calls to numbers in the San Diego area code. Each piece of paper I placed on the coffee table was another nail in the coffin of our marriage. By the time I was done, she wasn't even trying to deny it anymore. Instead, she looked at Everett and played her final card. "But what about our son? You're tearing apart his family over a misunderstanding." That's when Everett finally spoke up, asked why she'd told him they were definitely moving to California after the divorce, why she'd already looked up his new school, why she'd made him promise not to tell me anything. Turns out the kid had been carrying this weight for months. Not just since my surgery, apparently Erica had been floating this plan since last summer, gradually normalizing the idea of leaving me behind, telling him it would be better for everyone, that I'd be fine on my own, that the settlement money would take care of Dad, while they started fresh. Listening to my own son describe how his mother had been slowly turning him against me while I was busting my ass to support our family. I don't have words for that feeling. It's like having your foundation jackhammered out from under you while you're still standing on it. Erica tried to interrupt him, but Everett just kept going. Asked why she'd said Dad doesn't really love us, he just loves working, and his stupid friends. Asked why she'd told him that if he mentioned anything to me, it would cause another financial crisis like when I lost our savings. She had no answers, just tears and weak attempts to reframe everything as misunderstandings and poor communication. Eventually, she shifted to anger, started saying I'd manipulated our son, turned him against her, orchestrated this whole thing to punish her, said she'd fight me for every penny, for full custody, for the house, everything. I just nodded and told her she should probably talk to a lawyer then because mine was very, very good. She stormed out, saying she'd be staying with a friend and would be back for her things, slammed the door hard enough to knock a picture off the wall. Ironically, our wedding photo. The next 48 hours were when those 43 voicemails happened. They came in waves with different strategies in each batch. First wave, voicemails 1, 9. Tearful apologies and promises to change, how she still loved me, how we could work through, how California was just a fantasy she entertained when things got hard. Second wave, voicemails 10, 17. Anger and accusations. How I'd trapped her, how I was controlling the money to punish her, how I'd never supported her dreams. Third wave, voicemails 18, 26. Negotiations and bargaining. Offering to go to counseling, suggesting a trial separation instead of divorce, proposing different ways to split the settlement that still gave her enough to start over. Fourth wave, voicemails 27, 35, threats and manipulation. She'd tell everyone about my pain medication dependency, LOL, following my doctor's prescription. She'd make sure Everett knew I was keeping him from his mother. She'd make my life hell if I didn't answer my damn phone. Final wave, voicemails 36, 43, complete desperation. Sobbing so hard I could barely understand her, begging me to just talk to her, saying she didn't know what she'd do without me. The last one was just breathing and occasional sniffles for nearly 2 minutes before she hung up. I saved every single one, forwarded them all to Elliot, played a few of the worst ones for Silas when he came over to help me adjust my back brace, which had been digging into my side. Meanwhile, Everett was struggling, barely eating, spending most of his time in his room. When he did come downstairs, he'd just sit silently, scrolling through his phone or staring at the TV without really watching it. On the third day after Erica left, I heard him crying in his room around midnight. Took me forever to get up the stairs with my walker, but I made it. Found him curled up on his bed, clutching his phone. He'd been looking at old family photos on his Instagram. We had a long talk that night. Well, I mostly listened. He poured out everything, how confused he was, how his mom had made California sound like this amazing fresh start, how he'd been excited about living near the beach but also terrified of leaving his friends and me behind. The worst part was him asking if the divorce was his fault for letting me overhear that phone call, like he had somehow created this whole situation by slipping up once. I told him the truth, that his mom and I had been building toward this moment for years, probably since before he was old enough to notice. That marriages don't break because of one moment or one mistake. They break from thousands of tiny fractures that nobody bothers to repair until the whole thing is too damaged to save. Not sure if that helped him or not, but he seemed a little calmer afterward. Asked if he could stay home from school the next day, and I said yes. We ended up binge-watching some stupid zombie show on Netflix and ordering pizza for lunch. Just a normal day in our very not normal lives. When Erica finally came back for her things 5 days later, she brought reinforcements, her sister Maya and some guy I'd never seen before who turned out to be her actual boyfriend. Plot twist I didn't see coming. Apparently, California dreaming wasn't just about escaping me, but about shacking up with this dude she'd been seeing for 7 fucking months. Maya wouldn't even look me in the eye as they packed up Erica's clothes and personal items, just kept muttering about how everyone was overreacting and nobody was perfect. The boyfriend stayed in the car, which was probably smart considering the murderous looks Everett was giving him through the window. The weirdest moment came when Erica was grabbing stuff from the bathroom. She paused, looked at me hobbling around with my walker, and asked if I was taking my medication properly. Like she still had the right to be concerned about my well-being after planning to take my settlement money and run off with another man. I just stared at her until she looked away and continued packing. After they left, Everett asked the question I'd been dreading. Do I have to go with Mom sometimes? I didn't have a clear answer yet. Custody arrangements were still being negotiated. But I told him that as a 16-year-old, his preferences would matter to the court. The relief on his face was immediate. Said he still loved his mom, but couldn't imagine living with her and that guy right now. Said he needed time to process everything. 2 weeks later, we had our first mediation session. Elliot had prepared me well, laying out exactly what our position was. I'd keep the house, which needed the roof fixed and was only half paid off. The settlement money would be divided, with a larger portion to me for ongoing medical expenses and lost income, joint legal custody of Everett, but primary physical custody with me given his age and stated preference. Erica would be responsible for her secret credit card debt. Her lawyer, some slick guy in a suit that probably cost more than my monthly disability check, countered with demands for half of everything, including the settlement, plus spousal support since her career had been sacrificed for the family. The mediator, this tired-looking woman named Grace, who'd probably seen 1,000 couples just like us, kept bringing the conversation back to what was fair and reasonable. By the end of 4 grueling hours, we had the framework of an agreement. Not perfect for either of us, but something we could both live with. Erica would get $175,000 from the settlement. I'd keep the house and the remaining $500,000 for medical expenses, living costs, and Everett's future college expenses. She'd get visitation with Everett based on his comfort level and their mutual agreement. When we left, Erica tried to talk to me privately in the parking lot, wanted to know if we could ever be friends again, for Everett's sake. I told her maybe someday, but not today, not tomorrow. Maybe not for years. Trust isn't rebuilt overnight, especially when someone was planning to dismantle your entire life while you were literally flat on your back. She nodded like she understood, but I doubt she did. Some people never really grasp the damage they cause until it happens to them. The divorce was finalized last week. No dramatic courtroom showdown, just paperwork and signatures. 19 years of marriage ended with a notary stamp and a folder of documents. Everett is doing better. Started talking to a counselor who specializes in kids dealing with divorce. Been spending more time with his friends again. Even had dinner with his mom last weekend. Came home quiet but not devastated, which I count as progress. As for me, my back is healing slowly. Physical therapy 3 times a week is gradually rebuilding what the surgery repaired. Still need the walker for longer distances, but can move around the house with just a cane now. Small victories. Silas comes by regularly to help with household stuff I still can't manage. Other friends who disappeared during my recovery have started checking in again now that the divorce drama is public knowledge. Funny how people work. The settlement money is carefully invested according to the financial advisor my bank recommended. Not living large by any means, but we're secure. The roof gets fixed next month. Everett's college fund is established. Medical bills are paid. Sometimes at night when the house is quiet and the pain meds aren't quite cutting it, I scroll through old photos on my phone. Wonder how I missed the signs. Wonder if there was a moment when I could have changed the direction we were heading. But mostly I'm focused on rebuilding. Not the marriage, that's gone for good. But rebuilding my body, my relationship with my son, my sense of who I am outside of being Erica's husband. It's slow work, like constructing a house one brick at a time. Some days the progress is barely visible. Some days it feels like the whole thing might collapse. But the foundation is solid now, not built on lies or secret plans, just honest, everyday effort to make something that will last. Yesterday, Everett asked if we could repaint his room, said he'd been wanting to change it from blue to gray for years, but Mom always said no. Such a small thing, but it felt huge, making changes to the house that are just for us, not to please anyone else. We're going to tackle that project this weekend. Already bought the paint and supplies. I'll do the parts I can manage from a chair, and he'll handle the latter work. Building something new together, one wall at a time. That's where I'll end this saga. Thanks for listening, Reddit. Your comments and support got me through some dark nights. Maybe someday I'll post an update about meeting someone new or some other major life change. But for now, we're just taking it one day at a time, building our new normal brick by brick. And those 43 voicemails from Erica? They're saved in a folder labeled Reminder, not to fuel anger or resentment, but to remember that sometimes the hardest choices are the right ones. And that panic only sets in when someone realizes they've lost control of a situation they thought they controlled completely. Turns out that's a lesson worth remembering, even when your back is against the wall.